"Get your dirty hands off her," the restaurant manager shouted as two security guards grabbed Evelyn Carter by the arms in front of the entire dining hall. Crystal chandeliers glowed above tables filled with rich guests in diamond watches and silk dresses. Phones lifted instantly. Laughter spread across the room. Evelyn's tray crashed onto the marble floor. Soup splashed across her faded waitress uniform. Her hands shook hard. Tears rolled down her dark brown cheeks, but she still tried to stand straight. "I did not steal anything," she whispered. Please listen to me." Vanessa Carter stepped forward slowly in a white designer dress worth more than Marcus Reed earned in a year. Cold smile. Perfect makeup. Dead eyes. "Then why was my bracelet found in your locker?" she asked loudly. The whole restaurant went silent for 1 second. Then came the whispers. "Poor girls always do this." She thought nobody would notice. "Look at her shoes." Evelyn lowered her head fast. Her old sneakers were torn open near the toe. Marcus Reed stood near the kitchen entrance holding his construction helmet. Dust covered his worn jacket. Sweat stained his shirt. He had only stopped by the restaurant to pick up leftover food after a 14-hour shift. Now he watched Evelyn shaking in front of everyone like a trapped child. "She did not take anything," Marcus said. His deep voice cut through the noise. Heads turned immediately. Vanessa looked him up and down like trash. "And who are you?" she asked. "Another broke savior?" Some guests laughed harder. Marcus stepped closer anyway. "I saw your manager yelling before the bracelet disappeared." Vanessa's smile vanished for half a second. Then it returned sharper. "Security," she said calmly. "Remove both of them." Evelyn panicked instantly. "No." She grabbed Marcus's arm with trembling fingers. "Please do not lose your job because of me." Marcus looked at her eyes. Red from crying. Exhausted. Afraid. But still fighting not to fall apart. One of the guards shoved Marcus backward. "Construction workers belong outside," the guard muttered. Marcus almost hit a table but caught himself. Silence hit again. Nobody helped. Nobody moved. Phones kept recording. Evelyn suddenly dropped to her knees. "Please," she begged softly. "My mother needs medicine tonight. I cannot lose this job." The words landed heavy. But Vanessa only crossed her arms. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before stealing from my family." "I swear I did not take it," Evelyn cried. "Please believe me." For one moment, an older waiter near the bar looked nervous. Like he wanted to speak. Like he knew something. But Vanessa turned her head slowly toward him. That was enough. He looked away immediately. Hope died again. Marcus clenched his jaw. He looked down and noticed something strange under Evelyn's collar. A silver necklace. Old. Scratched. Hanging from it was a symbol carved into black metal. Vanessa saw Marcus staring at it. Her face changed. Just for 1 second. Fear. Real fear. Then she snapped again. "Throw them out." The guards dragged Evelyn toward the entrance. Her old bag ripped open across the floor. Medicine bottles rolled out. Unpaid hospital bills scattered beside them. Guests stared in silence now. Not because they cared. Because humiliation had become entertainment. Rain hammered outside as the restaurant doors burst open. Evelyn stumbled onto the wet pavement. Marcus followed right behind her. The doors slammed shut behind them. Through the glass, rich people returned to eating like nothing happened. Evelyn broke down crying under the rain. "Everything is gone," she whispered. Marcus looked at the hospital bill in her shaking hand. Final notice. Past due. Then headlights suddenly flooded the street. 5 black SUVs rolled slowly toward the restaurant entrance. Every guard froze. Every valet stepped back. One rear door opened. A deep voice spoke from inside the darkness. "Who just said the name Evelyn Carter?" The man stepped out of the SUV slowly. Black wool coat. Silver cufflinks. Calm eyes that made the entire street freeze. Even the rain suddenly felt quieter. Marcus tightened his grip on Evelyn's torn bag instinctively. He had no idea who this man was. But the guards at the restaurant immediately lowered their heads. Vanessa Carter's face lost color behind the glass doors. "Sir," one valet whispered nervously. The man ignored everyone else. His eyes stayed locked on Evelyn. On her necklace. On the old black metal symbol hanging against her soaked waitress uniform. Evelyn stepped backward instantly. Embarrassed. Ashamed. Wet hair stuck to her face. "I am sorry," she whispered. "If this is about the restaurant, I already said I did not steal anything." The man looked shaken for one brief second. Then controlled again. "Where did you get that necklace?" he asked quietly. Marcus noticed it immediately. The question was too fast. Too personal. Evelyn's fingers closed around the necklace at once. Protective. "It belonged to my mother," she answered softly. "Please. I do not want trouble." Behind them, the restaurant doors opened again. Vanessa walked out smiling tightly like she still controlled everything. 2 guards followed behind her. "Mr. Beaumont," she said sweetly. "I am so sorry you had to witness this ugly scene." Marcus frowned. Beaumont. That name meant money. Power. Old family wealth. The man finally turned toward Vanessa. "You accused her publicly?" he asked. Vanessa crossed her arms. "Because she stole from my family." "Did you see her steal it?" Silence. Tiny. Dangerous. Vanessa recovered fast. The bracelet was in her locker. Evelyn lowered her head again. Tears mixed with rainwater. "I did not put it there," she whispered. Marcus stepped closer beside her. "She is telling the truth." Vanessa laughed coldly. A construction worker and a waitress. Perfect match. Some rich guest standing near the entrance laughed with her. Marcus looked down at his muddy boots. Evelyn saw it. That hurt her almost more than the accusation itself. "Please stop," she said weakly. "He only tried to help me." Mr. Beaumont kept staring at the necklace. Like it was pulling old memories out of him. "Take it off," Vanessa suddenly snapped at Evelyn. "That cheap thing probably came from another theft." Evelyn froze immediately. "No," her voice cracked. "It is all I have left from my mother." That sentence hit differently. Marcus noticed Mr. Beaumont's jaw tighten. A bodyguard quietly leaned toward him. "Sir, the symbol matches the old Beaumont family crest." The rain kept falling. Harder now. Vanessa heard it too. Panic flickered across her face before disappearing again. "That means nothing," she said quickly. "Poor people copy rich designs all the time." Evelyn looked confused. "I do not understand." Mr. Beaumont took one slow step closer. "What is your mother's name?" Evelyn hesitated. Fear filled her eyes instantly. "Why? Answer me." Silence stretched across the street. Even the guests stopped whispering now. Marcus could feel something changing. Something bigger than all of them. Evelyn swallowed hard. "Loretta Carter," she whispered. Mr. Beaumont's face changed completely. Like somebody punched the air out of his chest. Vanessa immediately interrupted. "She is lying. Too fast. Too loud." Marcus caught it. So did Mr. Beaumont. "Interesting," he said coldly. I did not say what name I expected. Vanessa's lips parted slightly. Wrong move. Tiny hope flickered inside Evelyn's chest for the first time all night. But it died just as quickly when her cracked phone suddenly rang inside her torn bag. Hospital. Evelyn answered with shaking fingers. A nurse's voice came through urgently. Miss Carter, your mother stopped breathing again. If payment is not made tonight, we cannot continue treatment. Evelyn nearly collapsed. Marcus grabbed her arm before she fell. Please, she cried softly into the phone. I am coming. If you are watching from somewhere in the world right now, tell me honestly. Do you believe Evelyn is telling the truth? Or do you think the rich family knows something they are hiding? Mr. Beaumont stared silently at Evelyn after the call ended. Then he looked toward one of his men. Get the hospital records, he ordered quietly. Vanessa stepped forward instantly. Sir, this girl is manipulating you. But before anyone could speak again, an older waiter suddenly rushed out of the restaurant holding a shaking envelope. His hands trembled badly. I found this hidden in the manager's office, he whispered. Vanessa turned pale. Mr. Beaumont opened the envelope slowly. Inside was an old photograph. A younger Loretta Carter standing beside the Beaumont mansion gates. Holding a baby wrapped in a blanket with the same black crest symbol stitched onto it. The entire street went silent. Then Mr. Beaumont lifted his eyes toward Evelyn and asked one quiet question that made Vanessa step backward in fear. What was your mother's real last name before Carter? Mr. Beaumont's fingers tightened around the old photograph. Rainwater slid down the edge of the paper while the black family crest stared back at him like a ghost from another life. Evelyn stood frozen beside Marcus. Her wet waitress uniform clung to her thin shoulders. Her breathing became uneven. What was your mother's real last name before Carter? Mr. Beaumont repeated quietly. Evelyn looked terrified now. Like the question itself carried danger. Vanessa stepped forward fast. She does not know anything, she snapped. This girl grew up in poverty. She is trying to manipulate your family. Marcus immediately moved slightly in front of Evelyn. Protective without even thinking. Then why are you so nervous, he asked coldly. Vanessa glared at him. You should know your place. Evelyn swallowed hard. Her fingers trembled around the necklace. My mother never liked talking about the past. Mr. Beaumont stared at her carefully. Not with disgust. Not with pity. Something deeper. Answer me anyway. Silence stretched again. Then Evelyn whispered the name softly. Beaumont. The world seemed to stop moving. Even the guards exchanged looks now. Vanessa's face lost color instantly. Mr. Beaumont closed his eyes briefly like an old wound had reopened inside him. Impossible, Vanessa said too quickly. Loretta was fired years ago. Fired. Not unknown. Marcus noticed it immediately. Another mistake. Mr. Beaumont slowly turned toward Vanessa. You said you never knew this woman. Vanessa could not answer fast enough. That silence said everything. A black luxury SUV waited beside the curb while rain poured harder around them. The contrast felt brutal. Rich family power. Expensive coats. Warm lights from the mansion restaurant. And Evelyn standing there in soaked shoes with an empty wallet and a dying mother waiting in a hospital bed. Her cracked phone buzzed again. Hospital. She answered instantly. Please tell me she is breathing, Evelyn whispered desperately. The nurse sounded tired this time. Miss Carter, we cannot continue treatment without payment tonight. Evelyn's eyes filled immediately. Please. I am trying. The call ended. Marcus looked away for a second. It hurt too much hearing it. Mr. Beaumont noticed the unpaid hospital notices falling from Evelyn's torn bag onto the wet pavement. He bent down slowly and picked one up himself. Stage 3 lung disease. Overdue bills. 3 months unpaid. Evelyn reached for the papers instantly, ashamed. I am sorry. Why are you apologizing for surviving? Marcus asked quietly. That line made Evelyn almost cry harder. Vanessa crossed her arms again. Poor people always have tragic stories ready. One rich guest nearby laughed under his breath. Another lifted a phone to record Evelyn crying beside the SUV. Social humiliation all over again. Mr. Beaumont looked disgusted now. Not at Evelyn. At them. Stop recording, he ordered sharply. The phones lowered immediately. Tiny hope appeared for 1 second inside Evelyn's exhausted face. But it disappeared again when Vanessa leaned closer and whispered coldly, do not think rich men save girls like you. Mr. Beaumont heard it. His jaw tightened. Enough. His voice stayed calm. But dangerous now. Marcus noticed something else too. Mr. Beaumont kept staring at the necklace like he recognized every detail. The scratched metal edges. The tiny carved lion symbol. The broken clasp repaired by hand years ago. Where exactly did your mother get this? He asked softly. Evelyn shook her head. She never told me. She only said, if powerful people ever ask about it, run. That sentence changed the air completely. Mr. Beaumont immediately looked toward one of his assistants standing beside the SUV. Find every hospital record connected to Loretta Carter, he ordered. And reopen the old mansion employee files. Vanessa panicked slightly. Sir, that is unnecessary. Is it? He replied coldly. Marcus helped Evelyn into the SUV finally when her knees nearly gave out from exhaustion. The leather seats looked like another universe compared to her leaking apartment. She almost refused to sit. I cannot dirty this car, she whispered. Marcus looked at her sadly. You still think you are the problem. The SUV drove through the city slowly. Past luxury towers. Past bright restaurants. Past people laughing under warm lights while Evelyn counted the last $7 inside her pocket. Her phone wallpaper showed her mother smiling weakly from a hospital bed. Another emotional weight crushing her chest. When they reached the small hospital, the truth of her life became impossible to hide. Flickering lights. Broken vending machines. Cheap plastic chairs. Nurses moving too fast because there were too many patients and not enough help. Mr. Beaumont stepped out behind her quietly. Expensive shoes touching dirty hospital floors for the first time in years. A doctor approached Evelyn immediately. Miss Carter, we need medication approval now. Evelyn nodded weakly. I know. Mr. Beaumont watched her pull crumpled bills from her bag with shaking hands. Then he noticed something else. A faded old photograph sticking halfway out of her wallet. He reached for it slowly after it slipped onto the floor. The photo showed a much younger Loretta standing beside a black car outside the Beaumont estate. And beside her stood a man whose face had been ripped out of the picture completely. Mr. Beaumont froze. Because he recognized the watch still visible on the missing man's wrist. It belonged to his older brother. Before anyone could speak, a weak voice suddenly called from the hospital room behind them. Nathan, Loretta Carter was awake. And she was staring directly at Mr. Beaumont with terrified eyes. Nathan, Loretta Carter's weak voice shook through the hospital room like a forgotten secret crawling back to life. Evelyn froze beside the bed instantly. Mama, she whispered. Nathan Beaumont stood motionless near the doorway, still holding the torn photograph in his hand. The expensive black coat. The polished shoes. The powerful businessman standing under broken hospital lights suddenly looked like a man haunted by something older than money. Loretta's oxygen mask trembled against her face. Her eyes stayed fixed on Nathan with pure fear. You should not have come back, she whispered painfully. Evelyn looked confused between them. You know him? Silence answered first. Heavy. Dangerous. Nathan slowly stepped closer to the bed. Loretta, he said quietly. Why does your daughter have my family crest? Loretta shut her eyes immediately. Tears slid down her tired face. Evelyn's heart started racing. Marcus stood near the hospital door now, watching everything carefully. He did not trust rich people easily. Especially not when poor people started crying. Nathan looked toward his assistant standing outside the room. Bring me every employee file from the Beaumont estate 23 years ago, he ordered calmly. And every hospital birth record connected to Loretta Carter. Vanessa Carter sat inside her luxury apartment across the city at that exact moment. Wine untouched beside her shaking hand. One of her private guards stood nearby. Mr. Beaumont went to the hospital personally, the guard reported. Vanessa immediately grabbed her phone. Then the files need to disappear tonight. Back inside the hospital room, Evelyn carefully pulled the necklace from around her neck. This, she asked softly. My mother told me never to lose it. Nathan stared at the carved lion symbol again. His face darkened. There were only 3 of these ever made. Marcus noticed the tension immediately. Then why does a poor waitress have one? Nathan did not answer. That silence became another clue itself. Outside the room, rain hit the hospital windows hard. Cheap fluorescent lights flickered above unpaid medical bills scattered across Evelyn's chair. The contrast hurt. Old money investigating secrets while a dying woman fought for oxygen in a forgotten hospital room. A tired doctor entered quietly holding a clipboard. Miss Carter, he said apologetically, the pharmacy cannot release more medication until payment clears. Evelyn looked down instantly. Embarrassed again. I understand. Nathan looked at the amount on the paper. Small money to him. Life or death to her. Continue the treatment, he ordered calmly. Bill my office. Evelyn's eyes widened immediately. No, she said quickly. I cannot owe rich people favors. Marcus looked at her sadly. Even kindness frightened her now. Nathan studied her face carefully. The same eyes from the old photograph. The same stubborn dignity. This is not charity, he answered quietly. This is responsibility. Loretta suddenly began coughing harder. She grabbed Evelyn's wrist tightly. Do not trust the mansion, she whispered weakly. They buried everything. Nathan heard every word. So did Marcus. Emotional silence filled the room again. Tiny hope appeared for 1 second when Loretta reached beneath her pillow slowly and pulled out a small rusted key taped inside an old hospital envelope. Her hands shook badly. I kept this hidden, she whispered to Evelyn. In case they ever came back. Nathan's eyes narrowed immediately. What does it open? Loretta tried to answer. But fear stopped her. She looked toward the doorway instead. Terrified. Marcus turned instantly. A shadow moved outside the frosted hospital glass. Someone had been listening. The figure disappeared quickly down the hallway. Nathan immediately stepped outside with security. Empty corridor. Nothing left except a nurse pushing supplies farther away. Vanessa's pressure had already started moving. Nathan returned calmer than before. Too calm. Dangerous calm. Who else knows about this key, he asked. Loretta hesitated too long. Wrong answer. Evelyn noticed it immediately. Mama, what are you hiding from me? Her mother looked shattered now. I was trying to keep you alive. Nathan's assistant suddenly entered holding a thick old employee folder from the Beaumont Estate archives. Dust covered the edges. Sir, the assistant whispered nervously. There is a problem. Nathan opened the file immediately. Several pages had been ripped out completely. Missing on purpose. But one remaining page still showed enough to make his face harden. Employee name, Loretta Beaumont. Not Carter. Evelyn stopped breathing for a second. Marcus looked stunned. Loretta began crying silently into her oxygen mask. Then Nathan turned another page and found something worse. A handwritten transfer form connected to the night Evelyn was born. Signed by Vanessa Carter herself. Before anyone could speak, the hospital lights suddenly flickered again. And somewhere down the dark hallway outside the room, a phone vibrated with a cold whispered order from Vanessa. Find the key before Nathan opens what is hidden. Vanessa Carter lowered the phone slowly after giving the order. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark apartment window. Calm face. Expensive jewelry. Cold eyes full of panic underneath. Find the key before Nathan opens what is hidden. Back at the hospital, Evelyn still stood frozen beside her mother's bed. Loretta Beaumont. Not Carter. The name echoed inside her head like a storm. Mama, she whispered painfully. Why did you lie to me? Loretta cried silently into the oxygen mask. Because truth destroys poor people first. Nathan Beaumont remained still beside the bed, the old employee file open in his hands. Torn pages. Missing signatures. Hidden transfers. Someone had spent years burying this story. Marcus watched the rich man carefully. You already knew something, he said quietly. Nathan did not answer immediately. That silence became suspicious itself. Then his assistant leaned closer and whispered, Sir, several archive files disappeared tonight. Nathan's face darkened instantly. Who authorized access? Vanessa Carter. Evelyn heard the name and looked terrified again. The pressure returned immediately. Heavy. Suffocating. Before anyone could speak further, 2 hospital security guards suddenly entered the room. Miss Evelyn Carter, one asked coldly. You need to come with us. Marcus stepped forward instantly. For what? The guard handed over a printed report. Theft accusation. Fraud investigation. Hospital disturbance complaint. Vanessa moved fast. Evelyn's hand started shaking again. I did not do anything. One nurse nearby lowered her eyes sadly. Another whispered to a coworker. Phones slowly lifted again in the hallway. Judgment spreading faster than truth. Please, Evelyn whispered desperately. My mother needs me here. The guard stayed cold. You are accused of using a false identity to manipulate the Beaumont family. Nathan's eyes narrowed immediately. Who filed this? Vanessa Carter. Of course. Emotional humiliation hit harder now because this time it happened inside the hospital. Sick people watching. Nurses whispering. Doctors pretending not to stare. Poor girl accused again. Marcus clenched his jaw. This woman does not even have money for medicine. What exactly is she stealing? One guard shrugged. Rich people do not make accusations without reason. That sentence cut deep. Evelyn lowered her head again. Poverty itself had become evidence against her. Nathan suddenly stepped forward calmly. Nobody touches her until I finish reviewing the records. Quiet authority filled the room instantly. The guards hesitated. But not enough. Sir, the complaint comes from the Carter legal office, one explained nervously. There are witnesses. Right then, another humiliation arrived. Vanessa herself walked into the hospital hallway wearing a cream-colored designer coat. Elegant. Controlled. Like she already won. 2 lawyers followed behind her. Nathan, she said softly, this girl is dangerous. Evelyn looked shocked. Why are you doing this to me? Vanessa turned toward the nurses on purpose so everyone could hear. Because scammers target wealthy families every year. Whispers spread instantly across the hallway. Some people believed her immediately. Expensive clothes always sounded more truthful than poor tears. I watched her manipulate everyone, Vanessa continued. First the restaurant. Then the hospital. Evelyn's face broke completely. No, she whispered. I only wanted to save my mother. With stolen stories. Vanessa fired back coldly. Loretta suddenly started coughing violently behind them. Machines beeped louder. Emotional panic exploded through the room. Mama! Evelyn cried, trying to rush back to the bed. But one guard blocked her path. Second humiliation. Worse than before. Not outside a restaurant now. Inside a hospital while her mother struggled to breathe. Nathan looked furious now. Move, he ordered sharply. The guard hesitated again before stepping aside. Tiny hope appeared when Marcus quietly slipped the rusted key into Evelyn's hand without anyone noticing. Keep this hidden, he whispered. Do not trust anybody. But Vanessa saw the movement. Her eyes dropped instantly toward Evelyn's closed fist. She recognized the key immediately. Fear flashed across her face for half a second. Then disappeared again. Interesting, she said calmly. Still carrying stolen property? Nathan noticed her reaction too. Tiny detail. Tiny crack. He looked directly at Vanessa. How do you know what she is holding? Silence. Sharp. Dangerous. Vanessa recovered fast. Because poor people always hide things. Weak answer. Nathan knew it. Marcus knew it. Even Evelyn felt it. Another nurse approached Nathan quietly. Sir, there is something strange in Miss Loretta's medical file. Nathan followed her into the records office immediately. Old computers. Flickering screens. Dusty cabinets. Wealth investigating poverty inside forgotten hallways. The nurse opened the patient history slowly. Several treatment records had been deleted manually years ago. One missing emergency admission. One erased childbirth file. Nathan's expression hardened further. Who removed these? The nurse looked nervous. The authorization code belongs to the Carter Foundation. Back in the hallway, Vanessa leaned closer toward Evelyn and whispered with a smile that did not reach her eyes. You should have stayed poor and invisible. Tears filled Evelyn's eyes again. But this time she did not lower her head completely. Why are you afraid of me? She whispered back softly. Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly. Right then, Nathan returned holding another document he found hidden beneath the deleted files. He stared at it for several silent seconds. Then slowly lifted his eyes toward Evelyn. Because printed across the top of the paper was a different birth name entirely. Evelyn Beaumont. Nathan Beaumont stared silently at the document in his hand while the hospital hallway grew painfully quiet around him. Evelyn Beaumont. The name sat there like a buried secret finally clawing its way back to life. Evelyn stepped backward slowly. That is not my name, she whispered weakly. But even she no longer sounded certain. Vanessa Carter moved fast. Too fast. Fake papers, she snapped immediately. Poor people buy false identities every day. Nathan did not answer her. His eyes stayed fixed on the faded hospital record. Then he slowly turned the paper around. There was a tiny fingerprint stamped beside the old birth entry. Loretta Beaumont. Mother. The same woman now lying sick inside the hospital room. Silence spread through the corridor again. Marcus looked stunned. Why would somebody erase a child's real last name? Nathan finally asked quietly. Nobody answered. Because everybody already feared the answer. Vanessa crossed her arms tightly. This proves nothing. But her voice cracked slightly. Tiny detail. Tiny fear. Nathan noticed it immediately. So did Evelyn. A nurse suddenly rushed from the records office holding another file box. "Sir," she said nervously, "we found backup archives from 23 years ago." Vanessa's face lost color for 1 second. Emotional spike. Sharp. Dangerous. Nathan opened the dusty folder carefully. Inside sat old emergency intake photos from a fire near the Beaumont construction district years ago. Burned walls. Ambulances. Workers covered in dust. Then one image stopped him cold. A young Loretta standing beside an injured black construction worker holding a small baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. Evelyn's hand started trembling violently. Because the blanket looked exactly like the torn cloth she still carried inside her old bag. Marcus whispered softly, "That cannot be coincidence." Nathan slowly removed the cloth from Evelyn's shaking hands and placed it beside the photograph. Perfect match. Same stitching. Same faded sun symbol sewn into the corner. The entire hallway went silent. Even the guards stopped moving. First evidence. Real evidence. Something nobody could laugh away anymore. "Who is that man?" Nathan asked quietly while staring at the old photograph. Loretta started crying weakly behind the oxygen mask. His name was Isaiah Beaumont. Nathan froze instantly. Same family name. Same bloodline. Vanessa interrupted sharply before anyone could continue. Old photos do not change reality. But now even the nurses looked uncertain. One doctor whispered, "Why would her records be erased?" Another replied quietly, "Somebody powerful wanted her hidden." Evelyn looked completely overwhelmed. "I do not understand any of this," she whispered painfully. "My mother told me we were nobody." Nathan's expression softened slightly for the first time. "Sometimes poor people are forced to disappear," he said quietly. "If you are watching this story right now, comment what you think this hidden clue really means. And tell us who you believe is truly afraid of the truth coming out." Vanessa suddenly stepped closer. "Nathan, stop this now." Sharp fear hid beneath her calm voice. "You are humiliating this family over garbage from the past." Nathan ignored her completely. Instead, he looked at the nurse again. "Was anything else deleted from these archives?" The nurse hesitated nervously. "Yes, sir." She swallowed hard. "One page is missing from the childbirth report. Obstacle. Immediate. Painful." The room lost its tiny hope again. Missing page. Missing truth. Missing answer. Vanessa relaxed slightly after hearing that. Too slightly. Nathan noticed again. "Who had access to the missing page?" he asked sharply. The nurse looked terrified now. "Only donors connected to the Carter Foundation." Crowd whispers spread instantly through the hallway. Vanessa snapped angrily, "Enough." But another emotional spike arrived before she could regain control. Marcus pulled out his cracked phone. "I received something. A secret message. Anonymous sender. One restored camera clip attached." Nathan took the phone immediately. The grainy footage showed the hospital archive room from 2 nights earlier. Vanessa Carter herself entering after midnight with a legal box in her hands. She was not supposed to be there. Silence exploded across the hallway harder than shouting ever could. Vanessa's lips parted slightly. First real crack. "That video is edited," she fired back instantly. But Nathan's eyes had already changed. Deep suspicion now lived there openly. Evelyn looked at Vanessa with tears in her eyes. "Why are you trying so hard to erase me?" Vanessa could not answer immediately. That silence became another clue itself. Then Loretta suddenly grabbed Nathan's wrist weakly from the hospital bed. "The last file," she whispered painfully. "You need the last file from Riverside District Church." Nathan leaned closer immediately. "What file?" Loretta's breathing turned shaky. Isaiah hid everything there before the fire. Vanessa's entire face changed at once. Pure panic this time. No mask left. Nathan saw it clearly. So did Marcus. Right then, Nathan folded the yellow cloth carefully and placed it inside his coat pocket. Quiet protection. Quiet decision. Nobody touches this evidence again, he said coldly. Then his phone rang suddenly. Unknown number. Nathan answered carefully. A terrified voice whispered through the line, "They know you found the archives, and Vanessa is not the only one involved." The call disconnected instantly. Nathan slowly lifted his eyes toward Evelyn. "You are not safe here anymore." Nathan ended the call slowly while the cold hospital lights reflected across his face. "You are not safe here anymore," he repeated quietly. Evelyn stepped backward instinctively. Too many people had lied to her already. Too many rich voices had smiled before hurting her. "Why would you help me?" she asked weakly. Nathan looked at her for a long second before answering. "Because somebody spent years trying to erase you." Silence fell again. Vanessa watched everything from the end of the hallway, her jaw tight with fear she could no longer fully hide. Nathan folded the yellow cloth carefully and handed it back to Evelyn instead of keeping it. Small gesture. Gentle. Respectful. "Keep this close," he said softly. "It matters." Evelyn's fingers trembled while taking it back. Nobody had protected her belongings in years. Not after the restaurant manager threw her bag into the rain. Not after landlords searched through her clothes looking for unpaid money. Tiny rescue. Tiny dignity. Loretta suddenly began coughing hard inside the hospital room. The machine alarm started beeping softly. Evelyn rushed toward the bed immediately. "Mama, please." Nathan stepped forward at once and signaled the doctor. "Do whatever treatment she needs," he ordered calmly. "I will cover the cost tonight." Evelyn froze completely. Emotional spike. Pure disbelief. "No," she whispered instantly. "I cannot owe you that." Nathan answered quietly without looking at her. "You already owe too many people fear." The doctor nodded respectfully and rushed to prepare the medicine. Vanessa snapped from across the hallway, "Nathan, you are making a mistake over a poor waitress with fake papers." Nathan finally turned toward her slowly. His voice stayed calm. Dangerous calm. And yet somebody powerful erased her history. Vanessa crossed her arms tighter. "You are embarrassing this family." "Truth embarrasses people who hide it," Nathan replied. Crowd silence again. Even the guards avoided eye contact now. Marcus quietly approached Evelyn while handing her a cup of water. "Drink something," he said gently. Her hands shook too badly to hold it properly. Nathan noticed immediately. Without a word, he steadied the cup for 1 second before letting go again. Small touch. Careful distance. Evelyn looked stunned by the kindness more than anything else. "People do not help for free," she whispered painfully. Nathan looked down briefly. "Maybe somebody should have helped your mother years ago." That sentence hit him harder than he expected. Because suddenly another memory surfaced inside his mind. Rain. Fire sirens. His uncle Isaiah carrying a crying child wrapped in yellow cloth. Nathan's expression shifted slightly. Vanessa noticed. Fear returned to her eyes instantly. Meanwhile Loretta slowly opened her tired eyes again. "Nathan," she whispered weakly from the hospital bed. He stepped closer immediately. "What happened to Isaiah?" she asked softly. Nathan froze. Nobody had spoken his uncle's name in years. "You knew him?" he asked quietly. Loretta's eyes filled with tears. "He promised he would come back for the baby." Entire hallway silent again. Evelyn stared at her mother in confusion. "What baby?" Loretta looked toward Evelyn but suddenly stopped herself. Fear. Old fear. Deep fear. Vanessa interrupted sharply before another word escaped. She is sick. She does not know what she is saying. But Nathan no longer believed her so easily. He looked back at Evelyn carefully now. Her tired eyes. Her stubborn dignity. Her silence through humiliation. Something about her reminded him painfully of the old stories about Isaiah. Tiny emotional bond growing quietly between them. Then another obstacle arrived immediately. Nathan's assistant hurried down the hallway holding a phone. "Sir," he whispered urgently, "the Riverside Church archives are locked now. Somebody reached them before us." Vanessa lowered her eyes for one dangerous second. Nathan saw it immediately. So did Marcus. "Who authorized the lock?" Nathan asked sharply. The assistant hesitated. "A lawyer connected to the Carter family." Vanessa stepped forward again. "Enough of this obsession," she snapped. "You are risking your family reputation for strangers." Nathan moved closer to Evelyn instead. "Not romantic. Protective. Controlled. Until I know the truth," he said quietly, "nobody touches her or her mother." Evelyn looked completely overwhelmed. "Why?" she whispered again. Nathan stared at the yellow cloth still clutched tightly in her hands. Then his voice lowered almost to a whisper. "Because my uncle once said the same thing about someone he failed to save." Emotional silence swallowed the hallway whole. Then Loretta suddenly grabbed Evelyn's wrist with surprising strength. Tears rolled down her weak face. "Do not let them take the photograph," she whispered painfully. "The real face is hidden behind it." Nathan's eyes narrowed instantly. "What photograph?" Loretta looked directly at him now. Terrified. Shaking. "The one from the fire," she whispered. "Turn it over." Isaiah wrote the truth on the back. Loretta's trembling hand still gripped Evelyn's wrist while the hospital room fell into a suffocating silence. "Turn it over," she whispered weakly again. Nathan slowly picked up the old fire photograph from the bed table. The paper looked worn from years of hiding. Burn marks touched the corners. Water stains blurred half the faces. Evelyn stared at it with shaking eyes. "Mama, why did you never show me this before?" Loretta closed her eyes painfully. "Because somebody wanted you forgotten." Emotional spike. Sharp. Heavy. Nathan carefully turned the photograph around. Writing covered the back in faded black ink. Isaiah Beaumont's handwriting. His face changed instantly. Marcus stepped closer. "What does it say?" Nathan swallowed once before reading softly. "If anything happens to me, protect the child. Her real name must stay hidden until the truth is safe." Silence exploded through the hospital room. Evelyn looked completely lost now. "Real name?" she whispered. Nathan continued reading slowly. "The Carter family cannot know she survived." Vanessa suddenly stepped into the doorway. "Enough." Her voice came too fast. Too loud. Fear hiding beneath control again. Nathan lifted his eyes toward her calmly. "You already knew about this photograph." Vanessa laughed coldly, but her hands trembled slightly. "A dead worker scribbled nonsense 20 years ago. That means nothing." But Loretta began crying harder from the hospital bed. "Isaiah tried to save her," she whispered painfully. "He promised he would come back after the fire." Evelyn shook her head slowly. "What fire?" Nathan stared silently at the old image again. Memory after memory started opening inside him now. His uncle Isaiah arguing with wealthy family members. Late-night phone calls. A missing child nobody discussed openly afterward. Broken fragments finally starting to connect. There was a construction site fire near Beaumont property years ago, Nathan said quietly. Official reports claimed everybody died. Loretta looked at him with exhausted eyes. Not everybody. Tiny Hope entered the room for one painful second. Evelyn stepped backward slowly. You mean, somebody hit me? Nobody answered immediately. Because the answer was already growing inside the silence itself. Vanessa interrupted again before the truth moved further. This woman is confused. Sick people invent stories. But Marcus suddenly noticed something strange in the photograph. Wait. He pointed carefully. This corner was cut. Emotional spike again. Nathan narrowed his eyes immediately. The old photograph clearly had part of another person removed from the image. Someone had literally been cut away. Who was standing beside Isaiah? Nathan asked quietly. Loretta's breathing became uneven. Fear returned instantly. Do not say his name, she whispered weakly. They ruined everything after that night. Nathan crouched beside her gently now. Who ruined it? Loretta looked toward Vanessa by accident for half a second. That was enough. Nathan noticed. Evelyn noticed. Even Marcus noticed. Vanessa stepped forward aggressively. You are manipulating a sick woman. Nathan stood up slowly. Controlled. Calm. Dangerous. Then why are you afraid of old paper? He asked quietly. Vanessa could not answer immediately. Emotional silence again. Then another memory cracked open through Loretta's weak voice. Isaiah loved that baby like blood, she whispered. He said the child carried the future of the Beaumont name. Evelyn's eyes filled instantly. No, she whispered softly. That cannot be me. Nathan looked at her carefully now. The same stubborn eyes Isaiah once had. The same quiet strength. The same refusal to beg after humiliation. Mystery growing deeper. Pain growing deeper too. Marcus opened another folder from the archive box carefully. Inside sat an old church registration form from Riverside District. Most of the page was damaged. Missing signature. Missing seal. But one line remained readable. Child transferred under temporary protection order. Then the next line stopped everyone cold. Guardian requested by Isaiah Beaumont. Vanessa immediately lunged forward to snatch the paper. Nathan caught her wrist before she touched it. Tiny rescue. Tiny protection. Entire room silent. Vanessa pulled back instantly, humiliated by the moment itself. You do not understand what you are doing, she hissed quietly. Nathan answered without anger. No. I finally understand that somebody buried this girl's life on purpose. Loretta suddenly began coughing violently again. The monitor alarms rose sharply. Evelyn rushed to hold her hand. Mama, please. Loretta grabbed Evelyn's sleeve tightly through tears. I tried to protect you. Her voice broke completely now. But somebody inside the mansion found out you were alive. Nathan froze instantly. Inside the mansion. Not outside enemies. Not strangers. Somebody close. Somebody powerful. Obstacle arrived immediately after the Tiny Hope. Nathan's assistant entered quickly with another update. Sir, he whispered nervously, the church archives were emptied before our team arrived. Vanessa slowly lowered her eyes again. Fear. Real fear now. Then Loretta whispered one final sentence before exhaustion overtook her. Do not trust the woman who cried at Isaiah's funeral. Nathan's entire expression changed instantly. Because in the cut edge of the old photograph, he had just recognized the missing hand. A woman wearing the Carter family ring. Vanessa's fingers tightened around the edge of the hospital doorway the second Nathan stared at the Carter family ring in the torn photograph. She realized the past was no longer buried. And for the first time that night, fear truly entered her eyes. But 1 hour later, she was already building her next trap. Rain hit the windows of the Beaumont mansion while luxury cars lined the front entrance. Nathan had called for a private family meeting after discovering Isaiah's hidden documents. Vanessa moved faster. Smarter. More dangerous. Evelyn arrived wearing the same faded waitress coat from the hospital. Wet sleeves. Trembling hands. Exhaustion all over her face. The mansion lights only made her poverty look harsher. Rich guests whispered immediately. That is the girl from the restaurant. Why is she here again? She is trying to enter the family. Social pressure filled the room instantly. Phones lifted quietly. Eyes judged her before she spoke. Marcus walked beside her protectively, but even he looked nervous now. Nathan was not in the hall yet. Vanessa stood near the grand staircase in a silver dress, calm again. Too calm. Thank you all for coming, she announced softly. Tonight, we settle a very ugly misunderstanding. Evelyn immediately sensed danger. I did not ask to be here, she whispered. Vanessa smiled without warmth. No. But you came anyway. Emotional spike. Sharp. Cold. Then 2 security guards stepped forward carrying a brown envelope. Vanessa opened it slowly in front of everyone. Inside sat copied hospital papers. Missing pages. Altered signatures. This girl has been using false information, Vanessa declared loudly. Gasps spread across the mansion hall. Evelyn froze. That is not true. Vanessa ignored her completely. She lied about her family history. She lied about her identity. And now important Beaumont documents have disappeared after she entered our lives. Silence. Heavy silence. Then another emotional blow landed. Vanessa held up the old photograph. And somehow this poor waitress suddenly owns a private Beaumont family picture. Evelyn's breathing broke instantly. Give that back. Why? Vanessa asked coldly. Because the lies inside matter to you? Crowd reaction exploded softly again. Rich women whispered behind champagne glasses. Men shook their heads. One older family member muttered, this is exactly why poor people cannot be trusted around money. Evelyn looked completely trapped now. She stepped forward desperately. I never stole anything. Vanessa cut her off immediately. Then explain why your mother hid you for 20 years. Emotional spike. Sharp. Brutal. Evelyn could not answer because she herself still did not know the full truth. And Vanessa used that silence against her perfectly. Look at her, Vanessa continued. Even she cannot explain her own story. Then came the real trap. Vanessa slid a paper across the marble table. Sign this statement and leave quietly. Admit the documents were fake. Admit you manipulated Isaiah's old records for money. Evelyn stared down at the paper with tears building again. I will not lie. Then your mother loses hospital support tonight, Vanessa replied softly. Choose carefully. The room went dead silent. Evelyn's hands shook violently now. Loretta still needed treatment. Medical bills were already crushing them. Tiny hope appeared suddenly when Marcus leaned toward Nathan's empty chair and whispered to Evelyn, do not sign anything yet. But obstacle arrived immediately after. One of the mansion lawyers stepped forward. Miss Brooks, refusal to cooperate may lead to legal action. More whispers. More judgment. More phones recording her humiliation. Then a child's voice suddenly broke through the tension. Little Caleb, the hospital janitor's grandson who had followed Marcus earlier, pointed innocently at the photograph. That necklace belongs to her. Everybody turned. Caleb pointed directly at Evelyn's old silver necklace hidden beneath her coat. The exact same necklace appeared around baby Evelyn's neck inside the burned photograph. Emotional silence crushed the room. Vanessa's face changed for half a second. Fear again. Nathan's younger cousin noticed it too. Tiny hope. Tiny crack. But Vanessa recovered instantly. Cheap copies can be made, she snapped. Children repeat whatever adults tell them. Caleb lowered his head sadly. The crowd shifted back toward Vanessa again. Obstacle stronger than before. Then the mansion butler hurried inside nervously carrying another folder. Madam, somebody accessed the old archive vault tonight. Vanessa's eyes widened before she controlled herself again. Nathan still had not entered the hall. Evelyn suddenly realized this entire gathering was never meant to find truth. It was designed to bury her publicly before Nathan could speak. Tears rolled down her face now, but she still pushed the confession paper back across the table. I would rather lose everything than lie about my mother. Vanessa leaned close enough for only Evelyn to hear her next words. You already lost everything the night Isaiah died. Evelyn froze instantly. Because Vanessa had just admitted knowing far more than she ever should. Before Evelyn could respond, the massive mansion doors slowly opened behind the crowd. Every head turned at once. Nathan Beaumont stepped inside wearing a black overcoat, rain still falling from his shoulders. And in his hand, was the original archive box Vanessa thought had already disappeared. The entire Beaumont mansion froze the moment Nathan stepped through the doors holding the original archive box against his chest. Rainwater dripped from his black coat onto the marble floor. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Vanessa's confident smile weakened for the first time that night. Evelyn stood near the long dining table clutching her worn bag tightly, her eyes red from humiliation. She still looked poor. Still looked exhausted. But now the entire room could feel something shifting around her. Nathan walked forward slowly. Calm. Controlled. Dangerous in silence. Two security guards immediately stepped aside for him. Nobody leaves, Nathan said quietly. The room obeyed instantly. Emotional silence spread across the mansion hall. The giant chandelier reflected over wealthy guests frozen beside untouched wine glasses. Phones lowered slowly now. Whispers turned nervous. Vanessa recovered quickly and stepped forward with false composure. Nathan, this girl has manipulated everyone here. Nathan did not even look at her. Then you should not fear evidence. Sharp. Simple. Deadly. Marcus moved closer to Evelyn protectively while little Caleb stayed near the staircase holding the copied photograph tightly against his chest. The mansion lawyer looked uncomfortable now. Nathan placed the old archive box onto the center table. Beside it sat the silver necklace from Evelyn's neck. The exact same necklace from the photograph. Tiny emotional spike. Guests stared harder now. One older woman whispered, that symbol belongs to the Beaumont Foundation. Vanessa cut in immediately. Coincidences mean nothing. But her voice cracked slightly this time. Nathan finally raised his eyes toward her. Then why did you remove pages from the archive file? Silence. Vanessa blinked once. I do not know what you mean. Nathan slowly opened the box. Inside were old hospital records. Burned photo fragments. A faded letter. And a small VHS tape sealed inside plastic. The room became heavier instantly. Evelyn stared at the tape with confusion and fear. What is that? She whispered. Nathan did not answer yet. He only looked toward the giant screen mounted above the fireplace. The staff hesitated. Vanessa immediately stepped forward. You cannot show private materials without approval. Nathan's tone stayed cold and level. You already tried destroying them once. Emotional spike. Stronger now. Guests exchanged shocked looks. The mansion family members slowly turned toward Vanessa for the first time with visible suspicion. Tiny Hope entered the room quietly. Evelyn noticed it too, but she still looked terrified. She still expected the room to turn against her again. Then a trembling voice interrupted everything. "I was there that night." Everybody turned instantly. An older hospital nurse stepped forward from near the hallway entrance. Her hands shook badly. "I remember the child." Vanessa's face drained of color for 1 second. "You should leave," she snapped. The nurse lowered her eyes nervously. "I stayed silent for too many years." Emotional silence crushed the room again. Nathan nodded toward a chair. "Sit. Speak only when you are ready. Quiet authority. Calm protection. No shouting. No humiliation. Just pressure built through truth waiting to surface." Evelyn's hands trembled harder now. "My mother knew these people," she whispered softly. Nobody answered immediately. Because everyone in that mansion suddenly realized the answer might destroy the Beaumont family forever. Around the room, rich guests began murmuring openly now. Why hide hospital files? Why erase records? Why does the necklace match? If you were standing in that mansion, who would you believe right now? The crying waitress, or the woman trying hardest to stop the truth? The tension tightened immediately again. Vanessa stepped forward before the nurse could continue. "This entire setup is emotional manipulation." She pointed directly at Evelyn. "Poor people learn quickly how to use pity." Evelyn lowered her eyes in pain again. But before Vanessa could continue, Nathan raised one hand slightly. "Enough. One word." Total silence followed instantly. Tiny hope returned. Nathan then picked up the old photograph carefully. The burned edges shook slightly in his hand. "This picture was hidden in Isaiah Beaumont's private archive for 23 years, he said quietly. And somebody removed the final page attached to it." Vanessa stayed silent now. Too silent. Marcus noticed it immediately. So did the lawyer. Then Caleb suddenly walked toward the giant screen holding another folded paper. "I found this inside the tape box," he whispered innocently. Nathan unfolded it slowly. His expression changed instantly. Emotional spike. Heavy. Dangerous. The paper contained one missing hospital name. One erased signature. And one handwritten sentence. Nathan looked directly at Vanessa now. Why was Evelyn Brooks registered under another family name? Nobody answered. Nobody moved. The mansion hall became completely silent as the screen above the fireplace flickered alive behind them. The old VHS footage began loading slowly onto the black screen. Then Nathan turned toward the crowd and spoke quietly. "Before you judge her, watch this." The old VHS footage flickered onto the giant mansion screen. Static filled the room first. Then a hospital corridor appeared. Grainy. Shaking. 23 years old. Nobody moved. Nathan stood beside the screen holding the archive file tightly while Evelyn stared upward in confusion, her hands trembling against her worn coat. Vanessa's breathing had already changed. Fast now. Nervous. The video showed a young woman lying weakly in a hospital bed. Evelyn's mother. Loretta Brooks. Thinner. Crying softly. Then another figure stepped into frame beside her. Isaiah Beaumont. The entire mansion gasped instantly. Emotional silence crashed through the room. Phones lowered completely now. Rich guests leaned closer without speaking. Nathan's jaw tightened. Isaiah's voice echoed from the screen. "I will protect the child." Evelyn froze. Her eyes widened slowly. Vanessa stepped forward immediately. "This proves nothing." But her voice cracked badly this time. Nathan did not even look toward her. "Keep watching." The footage continued. Isaiah handed Loretta the exact silver necklace now resting on the table beside Nathan. The same family symbol. The same hidden mark Caleb recognized earlier. Then Isaiah spoke words that shattered the room completely. If anything happens to me, bring Evelyn home. Emotional spike. Heavy. Brutal. Evelyn's knees nearly gave out beneath her. Marcus caught her arm quietly before she collapsed. Evelyn, he whispered softly. Tears rolled down her face instantly. She finally understood why her mother spent years hiding. Why they kept moving. Why fear followed them everywhere. But the reveal was not finished yet. Nathan slowly opened the final archive folder. Inside sat the original birth registration papers. Untouched. Official. Protected for decades. He lifted the top page carefully. Her legal birth name, Nathan announced calmly, is Evelyn Beaumont. The room exploded into shocked whispers. Some guests covered their mouths. Others stared directly at Vanessa now. One older Beaumont family member sat down slowly in disbelief. Isaiah had a daughter. Public silence turned into public shock. Evelyn stood frozen. Crying silently. She did not speak. She could not. The truth itself spoke for her now. Vanessa stepped forward desperately. Those documents could be forged. Nathan handed the papers directly to the mansion lawyer. Check the seal. The lawyer's hands shook while reading. Then he looked up slowly. Pale. The documents are authentic. Emotional spike. Stronger again. Vanessa immediately pointed toward Loretta's image on the frozen screen. That woman manipulated Isaiah. Then the elderly hospital nurse finally stepped forward fully into the light. No, she said quietly. Isaiah begged Loretta to leave because someone threatened the baby. Silence returned instantly. Nathan turned slowly toward Vanessa now. Who threatened them? Vanessa swallowed hard. I do not know what she is talking about. But the nurse continued speaking through trembling tears. The hospital records were changed after Isaiah's accident. Somebody paid for Evelyn's identity to disappear. Nathan opened another envelope from the archive box. Inside sat financial transfers signed directly by Vanessa Carter. Dated 1 week after Isaiah died. The room went dead silent again. Vanessa's face lost all color now. That is impossible, she whispered. Nathan laid the papers onto the marble table one by one. Calm. Controlled. Devastating. You paid hospital administrators. Another paper. You removed the Beaumont name. Another paper. And you hid Isaiah's daughter for 23 years. Vanessa suddenly snapped. I protected this family. Her scream echoed across the mansion hall. Emotional explosion. Guests stared openly now. No more whispers. No more doubt. Little Caleb slowly stepped beside Evelyn and held her shaking hand. You were never lying, he whispered. Tears flooded Evelyn's eyes harder now. Tiny emotional release. But Nathan was not finished. He lifted the final burned photograph carefully. Then he turned it toward the crowd. Isaiah stood smiling in the picture beside Loretta, holding newborn Evelyn wrapped in a Beaumont family blanket. Public silence crushed the mansion completely. Vanessa looked trapped now. Destroyed by truth. Then Nathan asked the question that shattered her final defense. If Evelyn was never a threat, he said quietly, why were you so desperate to erase her? Vanessa could not answer. She only stared at the photograph while every eye in the mansion turned toward her. Then the old nurse slowly reached into her purse with trembling fingers. There is one more thing, she whispered. She pulled out a sealed letter with Isaiah Beaumont's signature still untouched across the front. The sealed letter shook slightly in the old nurse's hands as every person inside the Beaumont mansion stared at her in silence. Vanessa looked ready to collapse now, but pride still held her upright. Nathan stepped forward carefully and took the envelope. Isaiah Beaumont's signature sat across the front in faded black ink. Untouched for 23 years. Emotional silence swallowed the room again. Nathan opened the letter slowly. Evelyn stood frozen beside Marcus, tears still running quietly down her face. Her entire life had just changed, yet she still looked afraid to believe any of it was real. Nathan unfolded the paper carefully and began reading aloud. "If my daughter is ever found," his voice paused slightly. "She must receive everything promised to her by blood and by law." Gasps spread across the mansion hall immediately. Vanessa shut her eyes. The rich guests who once mocked Evelyn now stared at her differently. Carefully. Almost shamefully. Nathan continued reading. "Loretta Brooks protected our child because betrayal entered this family before my death." Emotional spike. Strong. Heavy. Then came the final line. "The person who removes my daughter's name from Beaumont records does so against my will." Silence. Crushing silence. Every eye in the mansion turned toward Vanessa. She stepped backward slowly. "Isaiah was confused after the accident," she whispered weakly. "He did not understand what he was writing." The old nurse finally spoke firmly through trembling tears. "You forged transfer orders yourself." Vanessa snapped immediately. "I protected this family from scandal." "You destroyed a child's life," Nathan answered quietly. That sentence broke the room apart emotionally. No shouting. No violence. Just truth. Pure truth. Evelyn lowered her head and cried silently. She remembered every hungry night. Every eviction. Every humiliation. Every time people called her worthless. And now the mansion finally understood why. One wealthy guest slowly placed her phone down onto the table in shame. Another guest whispered softly, "We laughed at her." Marcus looked toward Evelyn with pain in his eyes. "You were fighting this alone the whole time." Tiny emotional release filled the room. But Vanessa still refused to surrender completely. "She still came here pretending to belong," Vanessa argued desperately. "She manipulated Nathan." Nathan turned toward her fully now. Calm. Controlled. Final. "No," he said softly. "She came here trying to survive." Emotional spike again. Several Beaumont relatives quietly moved away from Vanessa now. Even the mansion lawyer closed his folder and stepped aside from her. Public shame spread slowly across her face. Then Nathan lifted the silver necklace from the table one final time. "This necklace carried the Beaumont crest hidden beneath the clasp," he announced. "You removed Evelyn's name from documents. But you forgot the symbol Isaiah left behind." He opened the clasp carefully before the crowd. Inside sat a tiny engraved letter. E.B. Evelyn Brooks. Public silence crashed through the room harder than before. Vanessa could not deny anything now. The evidence surrounded her from every direction. The nurse. The hospital files. The photograph. The video. The letter. The necklace. Even the family itself had stopped standing beside her. Then Nathan made the final decision. Effective immediately, he announced calmly, "Vanessa Carter is removed from all Beaumont family management authority." Gasps spread again. Vanessa's face went pale. "You cannot do that." Nathan's voice never rose. "I already did." The mansion lawyer stepped forward carefully. "The legal department will begin formal review of all hidden transfers and falsified hospital records." Vanessa looked around desperately now, searching for support. Nobody moved. Nobody defended her. Even the guests who once feared her avoided her eyes. Moral justice landed quietly but completely. No screaming. No revenge. Just the collapse of power under truth. Then Nathan turned toward Evelyn. The entire room watched carefully. Evelyn looked terrified again, almost unable to stand beneath the emotional weight of everything. Nathan spoke gently this time. "Miss Brooks," he paused. "No. Evelyn Beaumont." Tears flooded Evelyn's face again instantly. "You deserve an apology from everyone in this room." Nobody laughed anymore. Nobody whispered anymore. One by one, guests lowered their eyes in shame. Even Marcus stepped back respectfully now, understanding this moment belonged to her. Tiny emotional healing began quietly. Nathan then handed Evelyn the original birth papers and Isaiah's letter with both hands. "Your identity was stolen," he said softly. "But it belongs to you again now." Evelyn held the documents against her chest with shaking fingers. For the first time in years, she no longer looked invisible. Then Nathan looked toward the grand staircase leading deeper into the mansion. Warm lights glowed softly from above. "Loretta has already been moved into the Beaumont Medical Wing," he said quietly. "And there is a room waiting for you too, if you choose to come home." The massive mansion doors behind them slowly closed as Evelyn stood frozen between the painful life she survived, and the new one now opening in front of her. The grand staircase stood open before Evelyn like a doorway into another world. Warm golden light spilled across the marble floor while servants quietly stepped aside to let her pass. Her fingers still trembled around the birth papers Nathan had placed in her hands. The name Evelyn Beaumont stared back at her again and again, almost impossible to believe. Behind her, the mansion doors closed softly. Not like a prison. Like protection. Nathan remained beside her without rushing her. Calm. Respectful. Quiet authority filled the space around him. "You do not have to decide everything tonight," he said gently. "You only need to know you are safe here." Tears gathered in Evelyn's eyes immediately. Safe. Nobody had said that word to her in years. Upstairs, inside the private medical wing, Loretta rested peacefully beneath clean white blankets. The weak coughing that once echoed through the tiny apartment was gone now. Machines hummed softly beside her bed while private nurses adjusted medication carefully. Evelyn stopped in the doorway and covered her mouth as emotion crashed into her again. "Mama," Loretta opened her tired eyes slowly. Then she smiled. A real smile this time. "You are not alone anymore, baby." Emotional release filled the room quietly. Evelyn fell beside the bed and held her mother's hand carefully against her cheek. No humiliation. No whispers. No guards dragging her away. Just peace. Nathan remained near the doorway, giving them space. Even in silence, he protected her dignity. The silver necklace rested inside Evelyn's palm again now. But it no longer felt like a burden. No longer a curse. The hidden Beaumont crest inside the clasp had finally become proof that her mother had told the truth all along. Later that evening, a fresh set of clothes waited for Evelyn inside one of the guest suites overlooking the city lights. Soft cream walls. Warm lamps. Clean sheets. Food already prepared on the table. Evelyn stood frozen for several seconds. She remembered nights sleeping hungry beside broken windows while rain leaked through the ceiling. Now silence surrounded her instead of fear. Nathan knocked softly before entering halfway. "The legal team restored your identity records tonight," he explained carefully. "Your mother's hospital debts have also been cleared." Evelyn looked down immediately, overwhelmed again. "Why are you doing all this for me?" Nathan paused for a moment before answering honestly. "Because my family failed yours." Emotional silence followed. Then Evelyn whispered softly, "Nobody ever listened before." Nathan met her eyes gently. "I am listening now." Tiny healing settled quietly between them. Not rushed romance. Not fantasy. Just respect. Just dignity. The next morning, news of Vanessa Carter's removal spread through the city. The woman who once controlled every room now left the Beaumont estate alone, surrounded only by silence and cameras she could no longer command. Nobody chased her. Nobody screamed. Her power simply disappeared beneath truth. Meanwhile, inside the mansion garden, Loretta slowly walked beneath the sunlight for the first time in months. Nurses followed nearby while Evelyn stayed beside her carefully. Marcus approached quietly holding an old framed photograph that had finally been restored. Isaiah Beaumont stood smiling beside a young Loretta in the picture, one hand resting over her pregnant stomach years ago. The hidden family no longer needed to hide. Marcus handed the frame to Evelyn carefully. "He loved you before you were even born," he said softly. Evelyn broke into tears again. Not painful tears this time. Relief. Healing. Belonging. Nearby, children laughed beside the fountain while staff members greeted her respectfully instead of pushing her aside. One older housekeeper lowered her head gently and whispered, "Welcome home, Miss Beaumont." Evelyn looked around the mansion grounds slowly. The same world that once humiliated her now stood completely changed before her eyes. But she did not smile because of wealth. She smiled because the truth finally had a place to breathe. Before sunset, Evelyn carefully placed the silver necklace and Isaiah's letter inside a glass case beside the restored family photograph in the mansion library. Not hidden anymore. Not forgotten anymore. Nathan stood quietly beside her as she closed the case. "What happens now?" she asked softly. Nathan looked toward the open windows where warm light touched the estate gardens below. "Now," he answered calmly, "you live the life that was stolen from you." Emotional peace settled over her face at last. And as Evelyn Beaumont walked through the mansion beside the people who finally saw her worth, one truth remained stronger than money, status, or power. Never mock the poor. Never judge someone by worn clothes or trembling hands. The truth may be delayed, but it cannot stay buried forever. Those who destroy innocent lives will face their own shame one day. And kindness, even the smallest kindness, can change a forgotten life at exactly the right moment.